Hey guys, it's Mr. Excitement back. Mike Howerton here at Area 51 Alien Factory, and I am joined as always with my partner in crime, the Admiral, Tracy Rumschlag.
Drop your beer, grab your gear. The Admiral's here.
Hey, we are off and rolling for another busy night of recording here for you guys. And we're going to be doing that tonight. But first, if you have not done so yet, go down there below the video and hit that subscribe button. If you're not already subscribed, we appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. It helps our channel grow. And if you really want to help us, the best way you can do it is to share this video, share it on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, anywhere that you can share the video. We would really appreciate that. That's really going to help the channel grow. It gets these videos out in front of the eyes as many iRacers as we can. We're just trying to help people that are starting out in iRacing. And hey, even some of you guys who've been iRacing for a few years, this may help you too as well. But we're trying to help as many people as possible with these videos. So by sharing the video and subscribing and helping the channel grow, you're helping us do just that. And as we get into these videos tonight, we'll be rolling through Trace just like we do a lot of times. We get into the recording mode and we record multiple videos, several at a time, and then we roll them out over the next week or so. So this is the very first video tonight, and we're set for a heavy night of recording. How does that sound like to you? Heavy night of recording. Sounds like a lot of work to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a normal day.
Yeah. So I tell you, our first video and the first topic, we'll kind of chat each other up on this one. But we've been in the garage for a while talking about setups, especially in the B car. And I know later tonight in some of our videos, we're going to pop over the truck. But before we do that, we're wanting to talk to you guys about something that has nothing to do with the setup. It has to do all with you and me as we're driving the car. So we're going to start into our videos on driver development, Trace. And I want to tell you, I got hooked up with you, man, you had a program and you already had it named. And what's the name of that? What's the name of your driver development program?
Yeah, it's the super high intensity training. So that's what we put you through is our super high intensity training program.
Yes, super high intensity training. We're going to start with the basics of that right now and roll that out to you guys so you guys can do some super high intensity training by proxy. And so, Tracy, the first thing when you got a hold of me, I was kind of out of control. We kind of talked about that before. And you said, I want to get, the first thing you had to do to get me under control, you had the very first rule of super high intensity training. So let's cover that one first.
Yeah, well, when I'm spotting for drivers, the first thing I can't handle is a pissed off driver in a tore up race car. So we had to set goals for you. And the biggest goal that we had was you had to get halfway into the race without tearing up the race car. We didn't want any scratches in it, didn't run over anybody. We wanted to keep 100% peace. So what you had something to race with. Okay. So, and then after 50%, then what we did is usually there's a pit stop in there somewhere. We wanted to get you through the pit stop. And then after that, then we would race our way in. So we just race all the way to, the end of the race. Usually about 70-75% of the race and on in. That way we could be competitive and not tear stuff up. And once we got you there, you settled right in and you found yourself doing extremely well because you weren't getting banged up. You weren't having to deal with a handicapped race car, anything like that. So that was something we worked on with you that became a strength of yours. Now you're very patient. You're very easy. All we got to do is clear you and get you through the traffic. And then 90% of the time, you usually do the rest yourself. So that part's been very, very good. And it took a little bit of work. Actually, it took a lot of work, but it took a lot of time to get you to understand the concept of the racecraft and what goes into that. Okay. So once you learned that, and I was able to show you in Motec exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it, then you were able to understand better of the system, okay? The system that we use of not having to go out there and just blow the tires off because everybody loves the hot lap. Now, the thing about that is if it's all in how the race pace is dictated, okay? If it's a caution fest and you're getting 15, 20 lap runs and that's it, I'm going to build you a qualifying set. A lot of times you don't know that going in, but sometimes when you get to certain tracks, they have characteristics. The races are always like that. And once we establish that, then we build that setup, okay? But we have
Tracy,
to look
here at Martinsville, man, 15 lap run is a long run. Some of the
Yeah.
races we've seen so far. But so I really want to talk about this first concept just a little tiny bit, not in detail, but what it means. So it's not just me. I mean, we're in races every week, and guys will be racing. If you watch our live streams, a lot of times, when we're live streaming, especially in Be Open, you can hear me. I don't run anybody down, but you can hear me get a little annoyed sometimes or frustrated, be like, ah, man, that guy's just throwing it in there every lap. He's going to burn his tires up. He's going to run me over. I'll say stuff like that. Not that I'm upset with anybody, but it's just me talking about it. Like, hey, I'm going to get run over. He's, this guy's hot lap and he's throwing it in there. He's going to burn his stuff up. And not only that, but, they're throwing it in there, which causes a lot of wrecks at the beginning of the race. And I mean, what a waste, right? To go, I'm going to say that the Be Open only runs every 2 hours, right? So, or C Open or A Open, they all run every 2 hours. And so, you've signed up for this race, you're sitting there and you're like, I want to race it. And you don't get another opportunity for another 2 hours. And, somebody throws it in there in the first couple laps of the race and ends up wrecking themselves and somebody else with them. And now there you go. Your
Right.
nights,
And then you're a
yeah.
victim of somebody else's circumstances, unfortunately. And that's common. But what we need to do, especially as me as a spotter and also crew chief engineer, I need to keep you calm. Okay. If I can keep you calm, you'll be able to perform. But if you're very emotional and you get wrapped up in a lot of little stuff, you'll probably more than likely end up taking yourself out or getting taken out. So that's the first thing that we need to do, is just get a mental stable attitude that I can do this and it's okay. And then usually the race will, once we get into the flow, then it'll dictate itself.
Right. And so your goal then, so part of number one, your goal then is not to see, when you're starting the race for the first half of it, especially when the open races, because they're really long, they got a pit stop in there, they're long races. So number one, your goal is not to see how well I can finish. Your first goal is I'm going to make it to 50% without a scratch on my car.
Right.
And that's going to forget about where you finish, anything. You're not worried about how fast you're going to drive. You're not worried about what place you're going to finish. You're worried about, I'm going to make it to pit stops 50% of the race without a scratch on my car. Then after 50% of the race is gone, and let's say it goes green that whole first half, and you've done your green flag pit stop, you hop back out on the track. Now we start to worry about where we're going to finish,
exactly,
and how fast we're going. But your goal, that's just the number one thing I want to leave as we move forward, is number one, the number one thing where Tracy says, I can't, get to 50%. I can't deal with a pissed off driver or a wrecked race car. Right. So that's your saying. And to let everybody out there who's watching as a driver, when you hear him say that, it's forget about all the things you normally think about as a driver, like what are my lap times and where am I going to finish? Forget it. Your number one goal is I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it to 50% of the race without a scratch, ding, or dent on my car. So go ahead, Trace. Yep.
Well, and kind of helping that out, we have to be careful because the open is a longer race than the fixed. Okay. So if you're driving fixed, and it's more of a sprint race where you're running half the laps. So normally most opens are somewhere around 90 laps. So the fixed is 45 laps. So it doesn't go quite to the pit stop, but I understand. But when you segue into the open, that's where the mindset needs to change. Now, if you're running fixed, you've got to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. And I get that. Nobody's changing that mindset that you got to get after it. But the biggest thing is, like, especially in fixed, those guys just tear it up and it becomes 2 laps and a caution, 3 laps and a caution. Or if you're lucky enough, maybe they do get it sorted out and then it becomes a good race. But in the open, that's what you got to do. The first half of the race is kind of, I don't want to call it a throwaway, but it's going to be the building block for you and your finishing position on the second half. So once you establish that, where you're not tearing the car up and it's not all setup based, because a lot of people just go buy setups and they just throw setups at it. And really, that's not 90% of it. It's not 90% setup and 10% driver. You'd be surprised. It's actually kind of the other way around. But anyhow, getting through that part of it, that's what we want to do. But in reality too, we need to have some good practice habits for you. Okay. So when I'm doing driver development, we're in those afternoon sessions and stuff where we have an open invite for guys to come in and learn. We have to get these guys in that mindset that, one, this is a test environment. Yes, it's a racetrack, but we have to use it more like a science lab. Okay. So what I do with most people at that point in time is I will have 2 spots on the track, and I absolutely require that you do not drive past this part, okay? Because when I start looking at lap times, if you start changing the variables on me, let's say you sailed it off in there and overdrove it, got her all cocked up in the corner and stuff and couldn't save it, that's not going to do me any good. This test time is very valuable, okay? Your time is valuable. Every time we make a run or a stint, you're talking 10, 15 minutes of your time. So if you blow it a couple of times, you've got an hour invested and no actual data. All you've done is just knock the corner off it, run into the wall, spin out, whatever. And I can't, we got to have consistency. So your time is valuable. So what we want to do is we want to work you up to speed, okay? And once we have you up to speed and to a point where you're not just all over the track or beating it up, and we can get you 20 laps, 30 laps, 40 laps, and keep building, and you consistent, then I can start reading into the setup, okay? Then I can start making adjustments and seeing what part of the stint, which is when you go out and how many laps you do as a stint. In this particular case that I'm going to give you here in a few minutes, we were at Martinsville in the B car and ran 20 lap stints, okay? But there was 2 things. The first time I had you go out, I asked you just to drive the wheels off it, hot lap it, drive it as hard as you can, and you did, okay? Came in, we looked at that data. Then I went out there and I gave you what's known as a ceiling. I only asked you to go this fast. And in this particular case, I think it was right at 20 seconds or just a little above it, not below it. And you did that. Now, it was slow up front, but at the end of the 20 laps, in reality, and I'm going to show you this here in a second so everybody can see it. In reality, you were actually as fast and you were going to be faster in the longer run, okay? Because you preserved those tires up front, and for some reason, iRacing serves benefits with big dividends if you do it like that. If you go out there and hot lap it, you'll smoke them off. iRacing has it, however, and all of a sudden the car falls off and now you're like 2-3 times slower than you were up front, and you're dying. People are going by you like you're standing still. So if you're ready for that, I'm ready to show you that information.
Yeah, and as you're switching over, I want to tell you, it's kind of funny that a lot of this stuff that we've worked on has really sunk in with me. And there have been times where we were like at Dover and some of the other tracks I'm pretty good at, and a couple of the guys late at night, I was racing late at night, like 10 p.m. race and like midnight race or whatever. They were joking. They call me Long Run Howerton because they get in this race and I just let them go, and they thought they were going to win. They get way out there, they get up to like 5-6 second leads on me. And then and after about, if we had a good long green flag run, after about, let's just take Dover, for example, I think it's like a 120 lap race, after about 25-30 laps, man, that's it. I was gaining like 3-4-5 tenths a lap on these guys.
Absolutely.
And just blowing them away. And I ended up winning the race by 10-15 seconds after they were 6 seconds ahead of me after 20 laps.
Yeah.
Or 25 laps. And they kind of said that, and they acted like I had some kind of trick in my setup. And I remember talking to a few of them. And so I'm kind of, in a way, I'm glad we're doing this video, but another way I'm kind of hesitant because, man, if guys really take onto this and they really embrace what you're about to show them, it's going to make them so much faster in the long run. I'm going to be having a lot more competition.
Yeah, you're showing your hand, that's for sure.
Exactly, because this right here, what Tracy's about to show everybody, is my secret to long runs, and we're about to give away the kitchen sink here. So anyway, pay attention. If you guys embrace this, you're going to be just as fast as I am on the long run. So go ahead, Trace.
All right, here we go. All right, you should be in my world now.
Yep, there we go.
All right. So what we have is we have 2 stints here on the left-hand side. Both of them are 20 laps. The one that I have up right now at the lower half, I mean, was fabulous. I mean, if you were trying to see how fast this set was, you did a great job of it, because I'm going to tell you what, you were just ripping it. But the problem was at the tail end, it slowed down so much that you couldn't take advantage of what you gained up front. And once again, like I say, now this is only a 20 lap run, but we'll show you here in a minute what you gained and what you lost, where you lost it. And this is what I look at as a driving coach, chassis engineer, that kind of stuff. So everybody knows what I'm looking at. We're going to look at the top, up at the top here first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it all the way down to the bottom, okay? Because that's the important part for me. This is just your 20 lap run. It's just laid out with lap times, nothing fancy other than we go through all your lap times, and at the very, very end, we have what's known as an eclectic time. That eclectic time is all 20 laps added up for a total time, okay, your total time. This particular run, now if you guys will remember this, it's 6 minutes, 44 seconds, 5:28. 5:28 is the partial of the second. So it's, 28, 5:28. So it's 6:44, 5:28. So that's the total time, okay? Now the graph that you see in the middle here with the purple line, these are like timestamps. So every lap, this tells you where your lap time was. The higher it is, the slower it is, okay? So obviously up front, you're gonna be slow. And as the tires get hotter, you get faster. And then you'll notice down here on lap 4 was one of your faster laps. It says lap 3, so that's probably lap 3 was your fastest lap. And then you'll notice it starts stepping up. Well, as it steps up, that's slower and slower and slower and slower, and you get the idea. Now, this is a graph over 20 laps, okay? At the bottom here, if I really want to nitpick your driving, this is what I use, okay? Because this breaks down the track. It has the front straightaway from the start-finish line to turn 1. Below it is turn 1. Then we go into turn 2, the straightaway or the back straight, turn 3, turn 4, and then also the front straightaway, which goes from turn 4 to the start-finish line again, okay? So at the bottom is the total lap times, okay? Your fastest lap in that particular run was lap 3, and that was, we're just rounding numbers off, it was 19.5, okay? But you're probably wondering what the colors are. So the colors that I use, your fastest in that particular segment, okay, whatever segment it is on whatever lap, the fastest time that you had is in that like fluorescent green, okay? So you'll notice that they're scattered all over different laps. That's because you nailed those certain parts of the track on different laps, okay? So from there, we have a 1% fall off, and that's the regular green. And what that means is it's 1% different than what the fastest lap was, okay, or that segment. So an ideal situation would be to be in green and never come out of green, okay? But in reality, that's not going to be true, because you're going to have fall off, and that's what we're looking at is how fast, and then I can break down what part of the track you're good in, what part of the track you're not, okay, or needs work in. And sometimes it's on my end too. I might have to make an adjustment because the car may not be doing what you want in that particular end. Every track has its own characteristics. But getting back to this, so from the regular green, we go to orange, which is 2% drop off. Then we go to red, which is a 3% drop off, and then black is 4 and over, okay? We want to try to stay out of the black as much as we can. But to me, I want to look for the lime green first. I want to see where you were the strongest. And it looks like really at lap 3 is where you started coming alive, which obviously was your fastest lap. And we went to lap 4, but look, all of a sudden we're starting into the black already. So turn 1 for some reason was terrible for you. I'm thinking it was probably because there was a low tire pressure. That's my guess right there, is low tire pressure. But as it comes up, usually it'll smooth itself out. Turn 2, you were awesome. And then down the back straightaway. So obviously if you nail the turn or from center off, you should have your back straightaway speed. And in this case, it does, it shows it. And it looks like a pretty good stint for like 5 or 6 laps. And you pretty much had it lined up. Turn 3, once again, is the entry. So it looks like we're struggling on entry again, both in turn 1 and 3. So it's not like it's one end or the other. It's just whatever. Maybe you're over driving it. Maybe you're really hard on the brakes. Not sure. We'd have to go back and look at it to be sure. But you did nail turn 4, and you were able to get up off the corner. Not as well as 2, but you were. So that part's good. And your straightaway was really good, which obviously if you nail the exit, you're going to get the straightaway. So as we go through the run, you'll notice that more towards lap 9, we get into a lot of red and black. Okay, that's just because the tires came up, losing grip, and we get onto the rest of the run, and pretty soon we get a lot of black. And once we're into the black, that's pretty much where the car starts settling in. It's really no more faster, but you can lose time, but you can't make it up. So that's one thing that I look at when I'm trying to depict what part of the track you're good on and what I'm not. But what we're here for you, though, is the overall time, okay, the overall lap time, okay? So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to go to the second stint, and I'm just going to clear out the first one here. So we're going to go just to that time only. So remember the first one was 6:44, 5:28, okay? Now the next one, I just want to go check and see what that eclectic time is. That's 6:44, 5:14. So you were actually faster by just a tick. Okay.
Yeah, a
And
few thousandths of a second.
yeah, nothing that really shows dividends here. But when I show you the graph on the laps, you're going to see the difference. And when you see it, you'll see that it's continuing. So even though we stopped at 20, this car wasn't going to fall off in 30 or 40 as the previous stint was where I told you to go out and hot lap it. So let's do this. I'm going to reset this and I'm going to the hot lap one. So for the first about 7 or 8 laps, you were under 20 seconds. Okay. And you were fine. I mean, you were really cooking. But unfortunately, when we get down towards lap 15 on, the thing fell on its face. And that's what we're trying to tell our drivers here is you got to be mindful of this. And this, you'll see it at the end, but at the beginning of the race, everybody wants to go 100% or 10 tenths. And a lot of times I tell you, Mike, give me 6 tenths, give me 7 tenths up front for 10, 15 laps, and then I'll cut you loose. And this is where it pays off. So now I'm going to show you in Motec what it looks like on the graph. So we're interested in the middle here. Okay. Hopefully you can see my lines. It should be like a purple line and a white line. So the purple line was the very, very fast stint where you were just smoking the tires off it right up front, hot lapping it as hard as it would go. And you'll notice that you make it to about lap 10, and then all of a sudden the white trace catches up to the purple trace, lap 10. And that's where things start changing. Okay. This is when we know what part of the stint where the tires are coming in or the chassis coming in when it makes that swing. Okay. So as we go from lap 10 to lap 15, now you gained a little, lost a little, gained a little. We'll just say you broke even. Okay. But 15 on, all bets are off after this because you'll notice that the purple keeps climbing and it keeps climbing at a considerable rate. And the white just stays right there. So lap 16, you're a little bit slower. 17, you're faster. 18, you're faster yet. You're back up into 13, 14, lap 13 and 14 lap times because of where this line is, right? Lap 18. So you actually got faster. And this never fell off all the way up to lap 20. Now there's a big gap here between your hot lapping set and your race set. And that's not fair to say. It's just how I had you drive it. Because it was the identical set. I didn't want you changing that variable.
The setup was exactly the same. So
yeah.
So the setup here is identical. It's just the way you're driving it. And here's what I'm going to tell you guys. So and you'll hear me if you're watching my live stream sometimes say things like this, but I'll say, hey Trace, I'm trying to see which lap where we're going to break even on. And that was your lap 10 through 16 or 10 through 15 was the break even point. And then I'll
10,
say
10 right here is where we broke even.
Right. But then you continued that, they continued
the trend.
The break even, you still stayed roughly the same laps until 15. And so there was a 5 lap period where the lap times were pretty similar. But then at lap 16, I'll say, I just flipped it on them. Like I'll say, I like Trace, I just flipped it on him, or we just crossed over. I'll use that kind of terminology. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they're falling off now at a considerable rate, and I'm not. And then that's when I start just banging out the lap times. I'm catching guys by 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths, sometimes half a second a lap. I'm catching guys by, and this is exactly how I do it. And this goes on. So at 20 laps. It's break even. So at 20 laps, if you went out and ran it as hard as you could and ran the tires off, and then I laid back and took it easy, we both ran the exact same 20 lap stint. But the thing is that trend now is going to continue to lap 30, to lap 40, to lap 50, to lap 60. Right. And by lap 60, I'm going to be doing a second and a half faster lap than the guy who went out and ran it as hard as he could at the beginning.
Right. I'm going to give you guys one more minute to look at this, and I'm going to go kick it back to you. But yeah, the biggest thing is, and you have to understand, it's not that you got faster. No, it's that they got slower. You just remain consistent. Okay. So don't misunderstand, like all of a sudden you're going to take off and get back into the 19s. That's not going to be it. What'll happen is that it just stabilizes. You keep knocking off consistent laps. Okay. So your lap average is going to be higher than a guy that went out there and hot lapped it, thinking that he's going to be in the 19-second average, when in reality he won't be. He'll be higher than you are. And once you understand that concept and you get into these races and you start feeling the flow of it, you're going to see it for yourself, right? So one, you're going to understand that maybe setup, having 9 different setups through the week is not really what you needed. It was just the driving part of it. And once you got that figured out, that's where you start to excel. Okay. That's the secret high intensity training. All we're doing is accelerating your learning curve here. I'm giving you something to look at. Okay. Little patience for one, but the dividends that it pays is threefold. Easy. Okay. And that's as long as we're into these long runs. Now, like I say, if you're in a sprint race, obviously I'm not going to hold the reins back on you because we're going to need to get our position and hold it. Okay. But if it's a wide open, let's say you're intermediate, somewhere we got a little space and you're not having to hustle the whole time to keep up, then this is where you want to be. Okay. That's where the savings is going to be. Okay. So that's pretty much all I got on this one, Mike. I'm going to give it right back to you.
Thanks, Tracy. Appreciate you walking everybody through the Motec there. And it's one thing for you and I to sit here and have a conversation and talk about it, but it's a whole other thing to show somebody the data. The proof is in the data. The data does not lie. I've had that conversation with guys we've been racing. They'll be over driving somebody on our team or something. And sometimes they've told me that. They said, "Hey, Mike, you're over driving." And I'll be like, "Well, okay, maybe I am." But, there's been some guys I've said, "Hey, you're over driving." They say, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Well, let's turn on telemetry and I'll turn mine on. And after the race, we'll compare them because the data don't lie." And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just, the data doesn't lie. It's just data is what it is. So it's one thing to talk about it. It's a whole other thing to do what you just did, bring up Motec and show it to everybody. So I really hope that everybody who watched this stuck it out to the very end and is with us right now. And I hope that this really changes your mindset when it comes to the way you're driving. And I hope this is the first step down your path of super high intensity training, otherwise known as driver development. That this is your first step in a long road now over the next 6 months to really change and rethink the way that you drive. And I guarantee you that if you do that, at the end of it, you will be faster. And you'll be faster for it, and you'll be thankful that you did it. And so that's all we really have for this video. Just like to remind everybody, if you have not done so yet, hit the subscribe button down below. We appreciate your subscription to the channel, and also hit that bell icon to get notified as we upload more content here at Area 51 Alien Factory. And if you appreciate Tracy's time coming here and working through this with us, just give him a big old smack on that thumbs up like button to let him know that you appreciate it. For myself, Mike Howerton, and the Admiral Tracy Rumschlag, we appreciate you being with us here for this video. And as always, we will see you in the next one.